Hello and welcome back to What Heather Did. And today is not a chicken video. Believe it or not, I'm not doing anything with the chickens. Look, there's my chicken coop and my girls are in the background. There's also my dog. But today's video is actually going to be a thrift flip challenge. It is the Summerween Thrift Flip Challenge hosted by the Flippin Bunch. And our challenge was to take 3 pieces and that's my dog you hear crying about the chickens. Flip them to be spooky. And I don't know that I actually made anything spooky, but I love what I made, so we're gonna go with it. Be sure to check out the link to the playlist, hopefully up here somewhere and in the description below for sure. Now, let's get started. Say goodnight, chickies! So this was a pretty basic Christmas house cookie jar. The inside of the lid is cracked. And my daughter has questions about what happened to Santa on the roof. Maybe this house already has a history. I don't know. Who can say? Initially, I just started painting this and I painted the roof black, and then I went, I should make sure that the paint sticks well. So I covered everything else with slick stick, and then I painted it purple because a haunted little witch house should be purple. And then I decided it probably wasn't haunted. It was just a little witch living here in the forest, doing her own thing, probably gardening, taking care of nature, and the village just didn't understand her, so they were mean. Unless they wanted something from her. It's funny how people are sometimes just mean when they don't understand something. And then the little trees needed to be something besides the Christmas trees, because she's not going to have just evergreen. She's going to have some cute deciduous bushes. I don't know what these would be, but I just kind of painted, just kind of tapped, a little brown, a little yellow, and orange and red. And I did use 4 separate brushes, but I didn't worry about the paint drying, so it's okay if it blends a little bit. But then I did make sure some of it was clearly defined and it wasn't all blended together. And if my brushes started getting a little bit too gunky from all the paint, I just wiped them off. And it's fall because it's, Halloween. So that's why the leaves are starting to change color and it's not green anymore. Also above the windows, I painted, I decided that was moss instead of snow or some other kind of plant because she's a witch and she can grow plants up there. And I like the dark purple. I feel like that's perfect. And my daughter suggested the little snowdrifts should be funky pumpkins. And I was like, yeah, the witch would definitely love funky pumpkins. She would love all pumpkins because she's very accepting. She also decorated for Halloween, so she has a wreath and bows on her door. And then my daughter said she could see faces on the trees. And so I decided they should be little guardians. And this is actually dark green, it's not black. So they have eyes. I tried painting the rest of the face and it went from maybe a little scary to terrifying, so I backed that up a little bit. And after a few more details like the windows and the shutters, and of course the steps, and a clear coat, here is what the witch's cozy home looks like. project number 2 is going to be a project. I saw this trend last Halloween and I wanted to do it, but I never found a print I liked. So I found this one. You can see the frame is damaged. I like the print, but the mat is outdated and the little bumpers have melted and are disgusting. So I pulled all of this apart, which I didn't show. And I'm going to start by painting the mat. Actually, I spray painted the frame first, but I didn't record that. It's black because, you know, I wanted to make it black. And then I'm painting the mat because that's obviously what we should do. And I just went with black and gray and just dabbed it on. I don't care about full coverage. I don't care about covering up all of the parts of the mat. I just wanted it to be black and gray. And I did start by using the same brush and changed because that didn't work when I went back to gray. So now, do you see my ghost? I have another ghost that I already painted and I didn't record it. But look, so I just painting and then I hesitated here because I wanted the ghost to be holding, like, I tried to make a kneeling ghost, but I don't know how you make a kneeling ghost. But I wanted them to be holding flowers. But I didn't want it to look, you know, like a Little Mermaid scene. So I had to figure out how to paint the ghost holding out their hands without that looking bad. And then I decided that little bundle of flowers was in front of the ghost, not behind the ghost. And it did take 2 coats of the white paint, which it's still a little bit translucent, but they're ghosts. So I don't think that's a problem. And this ghost is supposed to look like they're kneeling, but you can't tell. And then the ghost inside, I feel like it's probably younger and just a little bit scared. Not quite used to being a ghost yet. So they're still inside. Yeah, that's what's happening there. See, 2 coats. And then I decided to put a pumpkin. There was a lot of hesitation here because I wanted it to look like a pumpkin and not a butt. So I finally just went for it. And I painted a pumpkin. This took several coats of the orange, but that's okay. It gave me some time to work on some other ideas. Like painting in the flowers. Since I had to wait for that to dry before I could paint more orange, I painted the darker spots. I decided to paint them orange. It's like I was adding a little bit more color into the ghost garden. Like, if you're a gardening ghost, you're going to want bright, pretty colors, right? I think so. And then add a little red. I'll add purple later, but I don't actually show the purple. But some of the flowers were supposed to be irises, so purple made sense to me. Okay, now, look. The one ghost, they are coming to visit. So the face is lighter because you're seeing them from the back. It's a happy little ghost. Also, look at my cat. I worked really hard practicing for that cat. I also wanted to do a raven, but I could not paint a raven. So there is no raven. I probably could have painted a bat, but the bat didn't make as much sense to me. So, you can see my ghost is holding flowers. It's a very happy gardening ghost. And I added some gray and blue lines to give the ghost a little bit more dimension. So it wasn't just, a blob of white. Add a little bit of motion in there, I tried. That's what I tried to do. What do you think? How'd I do? And then I painted a little stem on the pumpkin. I also had to go through and do a few touch-ups on the pumpkin because I didn't do perfect. I'm a very traditional pumpkin carver, so hence the face on all my pumpkins looking the same. And I mixed up some of that brown that I used for the stem with the orange to make the little lines on the pumpkin and give it some dimension. Now, this was something I learned, I think, from Dar, because there's a difference in texture between the shiny print and the acrylic paint, and you know, you want to make it look like a painting, you just take Mod Podge and you dab it on. Now, I did have a little accident. I don't know if some of my paint wasn't dry or just picked up some, but it ended up spreading up orange across everything, including my ghosts. But I feel like that was a happy little accident because I was actually going to cover the whole thing in a brown antiquing wax so the ghosts weren't like bright white and all of the colors weren't as bright compared to everything else. So, here's how it ended up. Let me know what you think. Yep, super basic vase. I tried a thing with hot glue and making a spider web, and I burned myself really bad with the hot glue, so I'm now scared of hot glue for the moment. So we switched directions, and I'm going to Mod Podge on some gauze and then literal tissue, just Kleenex. I pulled the plies apart and just did a Kleenex. This takes a lot of Mod Podge. And what I did was go around and get like all the edges first to hold it in the place where I wanted. And then I could put the rest down. If that makes sense. Also, if you are liking this video, please, hit the like button. And if you want to see more like this, hit the subscribe button. And if you know anybody who'd want to see it, share it. All the things that help me out, but they don't actually cost you anything. So I would really appreciate it. I've never Mod Podged with gauze before. Have you ever Mod Podged with gauze? It was interesting. It was easy to get the Mod Podge through there. So you can see there's kind of some lumps and stuff. I'll go back after I get the edges where I want, because I want it to be thicker in places, like some more texture besides just the gauze. And then you can see I just add more glue and I finally get it all glued down. And I used 2 pieces of gauze and then a literal Kleenex. The Kleenex actually came out really cool. And it was really easy to get to stick down. After I got the whole, and then even the parts that I didn't actually glue anything to, I covered with Mod Podge. And I let the whole thing dry overnight before spray painting it with black paint on a really windy day. It was perfect for trying to spray paint. And here I'm using silver gilding wax. I was really nervous at first, like I was going kind of slow, and then I just got into it and started going crazy. I really like the way the texture looks with that. I also used my finger for a little while, and then my finger started to feel weird because of all the texture, so I stopped doing that. I probably could have used a bigger brush. I'm not gonna lie to you, my favorite part was how the Kleenex came out when I used the gilding wax over that, which you can kind of see a little bit right there. See my finger. I liked the way it looked, but I didn't like the way it felt, to be honest. Right here is where the Kleenex is. I'm going to experiment more with that because I love it. I then went in with some gold, and some of the thicker parts are just random areas to little gold. I also used some super shifter in a dark blue color. Oh, you can see where I was practicing my cats and my ravens. The ravens did not come together. Anyway, the super shifter went on the parts with no texture, and then I buffed it all out. and that was like the easiest project, so let's see how it came out. And those are my 3 flips, so I would like to know, which is your favorite? Which would you keep in your house? Comment down below. Did I actually make them spooky? I don't think I got spooky, but I think I got fabulous. And I will see you later, so stay tuned to see what Heather does next time.